Alright, now it's off to historic St. Michael's Cemetery. I say historic because it's one of the older cemeteries in Bethlehem. God's Acre being the oldest. And then there are some old church cemeteries. But the first Catholic cemetery in Bethlehem is appropriately on the south side, and it's on the hillside in the eastern portion of South Bethlehem. Many of you have gone past St. Michael's if you travel anywhere in the vicinity of the 900 block or 1000 block of East 4th Street, and you've passed it whether you know it or not. There she is, right where I said she'd be. All right, here we are. And boy, I walk in to the cemetery from the State Street entrance, which is one of two main entrances, and I'm confronted by my own past. Yes, the Castellucci small Castellucci mausoleum, which is right by the gate at State Street. And Luigi Castellucci is an interesting gentleman. And he and my grandfather, John Castellucci, were related. Usual, I've chosen one of the least attractive days to be up here. It's raining, it's cold, it's mid-November. But you got to do what you got to do. So let's go down and look at one of the more iconic memorials in this old cemetery, and it just so happens to have something to do with my family. So on the way down the hill toward 4th Street, and I'm getting my feet soaking wet, that's great. But looking around, and you see what an iconic location this is. Walker Evans covered this, pretty much this very view, in a series of photographs taken during the Depression years, the 1930s. Beautiful pictures, beautiful black and white pictures, more or less capturing this same view. But I'm heading down to what is the intersection of East 4th and State. And there's the object of our search, right there. This is the gravesite of Antonio Castellucci and his wife, Maria, formerly Maria Fanella. I find this interesting because my grandfather, John M. for Mario Castellucci, was born in 1896. This gentleman was my grandfather's uncle, and he had a son, John Castellucci, who was also born in 1896, but he died in 1972. And he's laid to rest right here. So now we're about halfway up the hill from 4th Street, and about as far away from State Street as we can come. So we are on the eastern edge of the main part of the cemetery, and off to my right is an interesting tombstone. It's marked as Maria Giovanna Castellucci. Her maiden name was Maffeo, M-A-F-F-E-O. She was born in 1869. I don't know if you can see that. And she passed away April 6th, year 1896. And the significance of that, to me anyway, personally, is that April 6th, 1896 was my grandfather John Mario Castellucci's birthday. So yes, what that means is that my grandfather lost his mother as she was giving birth to him. So my grandfather never knew his birth mother. And my grandfather's father, my great-grandfather, remarried. And my grandfather, there was no love lost. My grandfather had a strong dislike for his stepmother. But this is the rather modest burial site of my maternal great-grandmother, Maria Giovanna Castellucci. I think there are at least 4 mausoleums here on the hill at St. Mike's. One of them is this imposing stone mausoleum structure at the far east end of the property. The name at the top is Zick, Z-I-C-K. Here's a second mausoleum a little farther west from the Zick mausoleum. This is the initial G, Sorino mausoleum. This one had a date on top. It's inscribed 1929. So this is 90 years old. Now we already looked at the Castellucci, Sorino, and Zick mausoleums. And remember I told you that there are 4, at least 4 that I know of. There might be a section of the cemetery I'm even unaware of. But we're heading up the hill, as you can see, steeply up the hill, to the 4th mausoleum, and probably the old. This is the creepiest looking one. But this is the one that's inscribed Bastianelli. And you can see the year 1912. So as far as I know, this is the oldest one. Clearly this one's over 100 years old, and it looks it. And as is the case with all of the mausoleums, there just aren't any living family members, I guess, to visit, because normally you would go inside the mausoleum for some visitation, but they all have steel doors. They're all boarded up. The years, quite frankly, and I'm sorry to say this, have not been kind to this old cemetery. And it's clear, either because of the terrain or some other factors, that they just can't keep up with Father Time. They just can't keep up with the maintenance as much as they'd like. It's almost as though there's only a limited amount of maintenance dollars, time, manpower, and they take care of the lower section that we're looking at, which faces north. But up the hill, where it gets steeper and steeper, if you look deep into the woods, South Mountain, the foot of South Mountain, there are graves extending. So, I don't know, is this where the poorest of the poor might have been buried? The poorest of the poor immigrants of South Bethlehem? 100 to 150 years ago. Many of the smaller grave sites appear to be for children, infants. It gets pretty eerie, creepy, spooky. I'm glad it's the middle of the day, to be honest with you. I'll look back, looking north. Just to give you an idea of how far up we are now. We're about 100 yards beyond the part of the cemetery that gets maintained regularly. And yes, amid all the tree trunks, the fallen branches, and tons of leaves, these are remarkably grave sites. All right, now it looks like this person, I can't make out this stone. Looks like the last name is Vendel, V-E-N-D-E-L. It looks like Mr. or Mrs. Vendel. Looks like they died in 1919, so they died about 100 years ago. Looks like they get the unofficial prize. As you look down there, we appear to be as far into the woods as any of these grave sites extend. There could be more, I'll admit, but I'm looking if there are. I can't imagine. I'll take one more stroll up into the woods, and well, I'm about as far up as you can go now. I can't guarantee there aren't any other grave sites, but I'm going to guess and say that the Vendel gravesite gets the prize for being deepest into the woods, the wooded section of historic St. Michael's Cemetery. But there you see a section of what is pretty much a secluded cemetery to begin with. But this is the secluded section of the secluded cemetery. It's eerie to be up here.